on the coronavirus pandemic. And we want to start tonight with what I think everybody wants to know. When can we expect things to reopen? Oregon's Attorney General threatened civil and possibly criminal action against Oregon City after learning that the mayor there was thinking of reopening businesses in defiance of the governor's order. Meantime, officials in Baker County in eastern Oregon, they want things to reopen there. So can local governments make these decisions? We asked Pat Doris.
Well, we're certainly seeing both ends of the spectrum of a small county or small town trying to get things open again. In the small town instance, the mayor going around suggesting that he was probably just going to have a declaration that would open all the businesses. That really points up to the frustration, I think, that is out there in the business community, although maybe not the best way to go about it. On the other side, you've got the county, Baker County, way out in eastern Oregon, that carefully and methodically puts together a plan showing the governor how they have met the different phases that she wants to see before she'll open things up. And I think that they probably are going to be much more successful. But they are both feeling the economic crunch that's going on and the desperation of some business owners, and they really want to get things going again. And it just shows you kind of what's out there. We don't see it all the time, but this definitely highlights it.
Absolutely. Thanks to Pat. So the second round of funding for the Paycheck Protection Program that became available this morning. Good news, right, for small businesses who still need some financial help right now. But how quickly could the second round of money actually help out, and who's going to get it? Lindsay Nadrich looked into that.
The U.S. Small Business Administration started accepting loan applications again at 7:30 a.m. our time this morning. But with the backlog from the first round, there was a huge demand, and there were reports that the site crashed within minutes of reopening. It will be interesting to watch to see who gets loans this time around, because there was a huge backlash in the first round after hearing big businesses like Ruth's Chris Steakhouse got a $20 million loan through the Paycheck Protection Program. The company has since announced it's returning that money. But that's part of the reason this second round of funding also includes about $60 billion for businesses like those in rural and minority areas where people have trouble getting loans. Regardless, experts think this additional funding could run out in a matter of days, leaving thousands of small business owners wondering if their loan application will be approved fast enough. Many I spoke with said their applications were submitted today, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
All right, Lindsay, thank you. We're still getting a lot of medical questions, of course, about the virus itself. So let's bring in Dr. Claire Wheeler, a public health specialist from OHSU in Portland State, to answer some of them for us. Dr. Wheeler, thank you as always for joining us here. Let's start with this first one. The CDC has added some new coronavirus symptoms. Can you please explain a little bit of this to us?
Yeah, so for any disease, whether it's a mental illness or a physical illness, you always have what you call diagnostic criteria, or a list of boxes that you need to check in order to say that a person has a particular illness. So originally for the COVID-19 infection, there were only 3 symptoms that were recognized as diagnostic, and that was fever, cough, and shortness of breath. But in the months since this outbreak started, we have seen a huge array of symptoms that you normally would not see in a virus that should only be a respiratory illness causing virus. So in addition to those 3, we now have chills, rigors, muscle pain, headache, sore throat, and loss of smell and taste. And these are now official diagnostic criteria for this illness. And the reason why this is important is because certain illnesses are reportable, which means that we have our whole public health infrastructure is trying to collect data to kind of track an illness. And we do that for certain things like tuberculosis and other things that are, could potentially be big outbreaks. So by adding these diagnostic criteria, we have 4 ways that I could, as a physician, say I have a patient with COVID-19, and only one of them involves testing. So I either get a positive test, or I get that first 3 symptoms, or I get a couple of the other symptoms, or there are some more sort of esoteric criteria for someone in the ICU. Now, the reason why we need this is because our testing capabilities are still terribly, woefully, tragically inadequate. We simply cannot track this illness with testing because we still don't have that set up, so we have to use these diagnostic criteria instead.
How does this help the average person? I feel like every single possible symptom is on the list at this point, from gastrointestinal problems to the cough that we initially heard about. An average person, I hear from so many people who say, oh, I think I've had this because I had one of the 10 million symptoms that are on the list at this point.
Exactly, and also, as we all know, this came on the heels of our flu epidemic and our cold season. So many people have had these symptoms, but the thing is, we don't have testing. And if I were to develop some of those symptoms today, it would be safest for me and everyone to simply assume that it is the COVID-19 virus and behave accordingly, because you probably won't be able to get tested. And the other thing is, coronaviruses exist. They've been with us for a very long time. The current pandemic is being caused by a coronavirus that jumped from a bat to humans, right? But our common cold that happens all the time, the second most frequent cause of the common cold is a coronavirus, is a human coronavirus. So some of what we know about how this virus behaves, we know from decades of dealing with the common cold. And one very disturbing feature of a coronavirus infection, even if it's a human one causing the cold, is you may develop antibodies and they may stick around for a while, but in the majority of cases, people lose immunity to coronaviruses within a few years after the infection.
So that leads me to the next question we've been getting a ton. Can people get it again? I think early on that wasn't very clear, but it sounds as though you're telling me now that, yeah, you could get it more than once.
We know for sure that you can get a human coronavirus again, and now this has only been going on for 3 months or so, so we can't say for sure, but it sure is starting to look that way, that people are coming up positive again after being cleared of an infection. And we don't know what the implications of that are for long-term opening up businesses again. So I would just say, for the average person, for all of us, if you get symptomatic with a few things on this list, I would tread carefully and just begin with the assumption that it could be COVID-19.
Got it. All right, Dr. Wheeler, thank you so much once again for sharing your expertise.
Always a pleasure.
So still ahead, could antibody tests be the key to reopening the country, or are we putting too much hope in them? But first, a quick Q&A. Can you file your unemployment claims any day of the week in Oregon? The answer to that is yes, but the State Employment Department says that most people file on Sunday and Monday because
Sure, you've seen pictures of the coronavirus, but what really makes this spiky ball tick? It's too tiny to see with your naked eye, so you gotta think small. Picture just one strand of your hair and stretch that out. Imagine laying a dozen cells across the width of that hair. That's about how big some of your lung cells are. And next to a human lung cell, the coronavirus is still tiny, less than 1/100th of the width. The potent stuff's even smaller. The virus's guts, a strand of something called RNA. Similar to our DNA, this is genetic code, instructions for making copies of the virus. But to do that, the virus needs something it doesn't have. A cell. So it evolved a clever way to get inside yours. The key is the outside envelope and that crown of spikes that gives coronavirus its name. It's not decorative. This is an elaborate disguise, a fraud that the virus uses to trick its way in. You can think of your cell like a factory surrounded by a big fortress wall. The factory inside's making stuff your body needs, and all over the outer walls are special doors. Each door finds and pulls in specific stuff that the factory needs. This virus uses one door in particular, the ACE2 receptor, which normally grabs onto proteins and brings some of them into the cell. The spike on this coronavirus looks just like the real deal, but it's a Trojan horse. Once the receptor grabs that spike, the virus can fuse with your cell's outer wall and slip right through it, almost like a ghost. Inside the human cell, the virus starts uncoating, releasing its RNA. This starts a process that ends up using parts of the factory in your cell to make new copies of the virus, and more copies, and more copies. Those new copies start leaving the cell and can travel to other parts of your body to infect more. Scientists are studying the details of every step in this virus's life cycle. If we can find a way to interrupt just one part of it, it It could lead to a new treatment or stop or slow the spread.
All right, let's stick with the kind of the science part of all this for a second, because we always talk about the testing and the testing of people for this virus. But there's another test out there that people think could help reopen the country. It's one of those antibody tests, all right? Those could help determine who's had the virus and who hasn't. We asked Dr. John Torres if we're hoping too much with these tests as a way to get back to normal.
And I don't think at this point we're actually hoping for too much in using those antibody tests in conjunction with all the other testing, contact tracing, and isolation of people that are sick to try and open up society. What the World Health Organization said this weekend was essentially that we have to be a little careful with the antibody testing, because we know when somebody recovers from coronavirus, they're going to have elevated antibodies. What we don't know is how long that's going to protect them, and if in fact it's even going to protect them. What they didn't say was that people can catch it a second time. We have not seen that at this point, but they're not sure exactly how many antibodies you need in your body, how long that's going to last, and if it's going to give you full protection. So instead what they're saying is you need to be a little cautious with these tests. If you do test positive, it could be what we call a false positive, meaning that it's a wrong test, the test is erroneous, and they want people to be sure that they're not using that test with a false sense of security, saying I can go out and do whatever I want. I don't need to wear a mask or social distance because I have immunity. We don't know that you do, in fact. So they want everybody to still play it safe.
Now schools are still deciding if and how they'll reopen in the fall. So if your student is applying for college right now, what should they keep in mind? Well, George Fox University in Newburgh announced today that they plan to resume in-person classes in the fall. The University of Oregon has similar plans and will work with people to keep their distance by altering class schedules and offering more online options. We asked Neha Gupta, the founder of College Shortcuts, what should students and parents do right now if they're applying for college in the fall?
One of the big tips that I have for students and parents right now is the fact that this is going to be one of the hardest admission process for parents and students this year, and to realize that some of the things they need to look at are for the following. First, they really need to understand and look at every different school and what they're looking for. The second thing we always recommend is getting outside help during this time. Most students would have relied on a guidance counselor or being able to visit schools, so getting a consultant to help you through this process can make all the difference. And then the third part is to realize that this year it's not going to be about your stats, it's going to be about your story. So most students think that their GPA or SAT score is what they were going to rely upon, but this year it's going to be how you craft your unique angle. What is it that you have that's going to make you stand out with your essays and your resume?
You might have seen some claims on social media that do-it-yourself treatments can cure COVID-19. Do they work or are they fake? Our Verify team checks it out.
The Verify team is here to shut down misinformation on social media. And we've been busy. Our inbox has been filling up with questions about some of these do-it-yourself remedies that are spreading online. So let's take a look at two of these viral claims to find out if they're true. Question 1. Let's verify, will drinking hot lemon water with baking soda kill the virus? To find out, we contacted one of our sources, a microbiology expert at the George Washington University School of Medicine and Health Sciences. He tells us that coronavirus attacks your respiratory system as a whole, including the cells in your throat. And lemon water just doesn't have the power to reverse that.
A free-floating virus at that point in the throat is very, very little. The most of the virus is inside the cells. The drink cannot penetrate in the cells and kill the virus.
We also looked to the CDC and the WHO, neither of which had any evidence that this would work. So we can verify, this one is false. Okay, what about this online claim? Does blow drying your nostrils kill the virus? And this might sound a little out there, but online people are swearing that this works. Our expert says no. He says that would not be an effective way to kill the virus, and neither the CDC nor the WHO have pegged this as a possible treatment. The CDC says the best way to protect yourself is to stick to the basics. Wash your hands with soap and water, use hand sanitizer, avoid touching your face, and practice social distancing. With your Verify, this is Evan Kozlov.
Geez, thanks for clearing that up. Rose Festival season just around the corner, but will any events even happen this year? We've got the answer for you coming up. But first, you wanted to know, can ultraviolet light kill COVID-19? Preliminary findings show it could possibly slow COVID-19 growth rates, but not wipe it out. Researchers say using UV light to kill the virus on the body is not Here's another possible side effect from this pandemic. Pediatricians are reporting that parents aren't taking their kids in for checkups, and immunization rates are falling as a result. That could mean possible outbreaks of other avoidable diseases, things like measles. We asked Dr. Kavita Patel, what should parents know about taking their kid to the doctor right now?
I would encourage parents all around the country should actually call their pediatricians' offices, because all pediatricians are making preparations to have safe parts of their clinic or hours where they can absolutely assure safety on both sides as a health professional and as a patient to safely give vaccines. The first conversation should be with your local health professional, your pediatrician, and ask if you've been delayed by a certain number of weeks or if it's been a month or so. Ask when you need to come in. And like I said, most of my colleagues are all making preparations to bring patients in safely to get those vaccines. And I would encourage you to reach out and pick up the phone today to find out how to get that done sooner rather than later.
113 years. That's how long the Portland Rose Festival tradition runs. So in coronavirus times, a lot of you have been asking about the status of our Fair City's signature event. Tim Gordon's got some answers.
Well, we know a lot of you are wondering, are we going to have a Portland Rose Festival or not this year? And the answer is yes, it may be quite postponed to get to the real thing. But for now, there are some options for you to have kind of a virtual Portland Rose Festival for now, including a couple things they're setting up. And Parading in Place is their new website, just launched today. A couple ways you can kind of have a virtual parade. There's the Porch Parade, which is going to happen in May, where you can set up your front yard, your porch, get all your neighbors to do it too. There'll be some friendly competition around that. All the rules are on the website there. And so that's a fun thing to do. There's another one I'm going to show you as well. It's called the Grand Petite Parade. So Abby, come back in and I'll show you that. That's also on this Parading in Place website. And this one, you can build your own float from the size of a shoebox on up. And again, a friendly competition that you can get involved with. Organizers hope that maybe they can still throw the actual Grand Floral Parade, bring in the ships for Fleet Week. Hopefully September, that's the best window they're looking for. If it doesn't happen, it may get pushed to next year, but keep hope alive and keep your Portland Rose Festival spirit alive as well.
All right, thank you to all of you for joining us tonight. KGW is, of course, committed to continuing coverage of this coronavirus outbreak. If you still have questions, and I'm sure you do, our past stories may answer a few of them for you. You can go straight to kgw.com/answers to see all of our past Q&As and continue to send in your questions to us here at KGW, and we'll work hard to consult with our experts and get them answered. Thanks for being with us tonight. We'll see you back here for the news at 11 o'clock and back here tomorrow at 7 o'clock for more Q&A.